Hey folks, Engineer 775. I'm back with Johnny Valentine with Gain Solar, putting in another off-grid system. This one's a little more complicated than the last one I showed you. And so I want him to go ahead and explain just a little bit about this Outback Radian. Go for it, boss.
So we're knee deep in the Radian right now. We got the 8048A. It is a 8,000 watt, 48 volt Outback's latest and greatest. It's got the lithium battery charging profiles and a little more bells and whistles than the regular 8048.
And the Grid Zero?
It has Grid Zero technology, which is very interesting. It's got the Outback Mate 3 controller with the scroll wheel, which is reminiscent of the iPod. And then we got two Midnight Classic 150 charge controllers and a GSLC pre-wired load center. And this box is super tight. Anybody will tell you that it's very tight. It did pass the UL, but it's very difficult to work in. But we're getting it. It's got a lot of stuff going on in here, so.
Too much stuff that we're going to cover right now, but we'll have some of you that will be mad for not covering that. But we're also having the ability to feed a generator in here, right? We got a 50 amp.
It's got the two output breakers. This is a bypass if you want to pass grid directly through. It's got a 50 amp input from the grid as well as a 50 amp input from a generator. So this is one of the only load centers out there that comes with the transfer switch for a generator, so you can feed power in from the grid or from generators.
Sweet, that's what I want to do.
And then there's also this is your DC breakers. They build in a GFCI breaker. Midnight has GFCIs built into their controllers, so I'm probably going to swap that out, use the built-in GFCI from the Midnights because I like it.
We like the Midnights.
Yeah, the system's going to be connected to the internet, so it'll have monitoring. This will talk to the internet, and these will talk to the internet.
Cool. So let's talk a little bit about across the room here. Just our basic setup of a critical loads panel. What do we got, Johnny?
So we got the main panel, and this 50 amp breaker feeds power. It's actually feeding power outside of the house to a disconnect for the utility, since this is a utility interactive inverter. Most of the power companies, they want to be able to disconnect the inverter from their house or from their meter before they pull the meter. And then we've also got power feeding. So power is feeding from this main panel out to a disconnect, back into the inverter for the charger and for pass-through loads. It's feeding back out of the output of the inverter into
our critical loads,
which is your critical loads panel. It's got your
what are we running in there? What kind of things are we running?
We got stuff like, freezers, fridges, well pump, water. Well, no, the water heater. That's
a propane.
That must be the Renai, yeah.
Yeah.
So just basically anything that doesn't make heat and anything that can plug into an outlet, and then your 220 volt appliances like your motors and stuff that you need to be able to start them up, but you just don't really want to try to make heat.
Yeah. And one thing we are excited, maybe like on the well pump, which is 220, it might crank up to 30 amps. So that Grid Zero function of this Radian will help. How?
The Grid Zero is going to it simultaneously passes through grid power during a high surge, so that the battery voltage doesn't sag on the inverter side.
That's
so when
pretty
you have
cool.
A big load kick on, a lot of time if your battery's around 50 volts and a big load kicks on, your battery voltage will sag, and when your battery voltage sags like that, there can be times where you'll hit other settings inside your inverter that would cause the inverter to behave like the battery was drain low, when really it just had a big load that was sagging on the battery voltage. So in regular setup, you're going to be, using this as much as you possibly can off grid, and if a big load comes through, it'll pull the grid through real quick, but it won't necessarily connect back to the grid and go through that whole.
Right. So if we have grid power, it's more forgiving on your battery bank, I would say.
Right.
If we don't have grid power, we can use a generator, and that would feed in some AC power.
Yeah.
But there's still this critical load panel is sized appropriately for what we're doing. It can run everything in that panel, correct?
Oh yeah.
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 So
I mean, it might not run it all
simultaneously.
Years and years to go, simultaneously, but anything in here, there's nothing in here that's going to trip this breaker.
Okay.
Except for this, I don't know what this 50 amp is right here. I know
There's
what
always
he's
a
thinking
mystery.
there. Maybe
So-
he's running that to. He might be running that out there to that air conditioner or something, thinking it's not going to pull 50
Yeah,
amps.
so we're working with an electrician on this job, and we're adding what we need to add. So, all right, that's the mech room. We just wanted to show you kind of in process, so you could see kind of what needs. There's a lot that happens in these types of systems, a lot that has to be thought through. So we're going to show you the final product, but we're just showing you the mech room now, and then I want to show you the battery bank and the beginning of the S5 clamps and the racking system that goes on the roof here. Okay, the next thing we're going to show you is the roof racking system for the solar, and because this roof is a standing seam metal roof, we're using these really cool S5 clamps, and then a snap and rack system mounted to the S5 clamp, so for the rails. Go ahead, Johnny, what do you want to say about this?
Well, we got a little warranty voidation going on here, but we had to modify this S5.
Yeah, and I've got that video I'm going to cut in here on the mod. If you
Okay.
don't, so I've already done that.
Okay.
And so we did this stand. Let me just show you the roof. All right, standing seam metal roof was formed in the field here, and S5 only had 2 clamps that could possibly work with it, and we had to modify 60 clamps to get this thing to fit. It's just a chamfer and a grind and a cut, so no big deal. So that's the rails, no solar yet.
It's a little midnight metal shop.
Just a late night shop, Engineer 775 metal shopping. So anyway, we've got there's going to be 18 modules on this roof and then 9 on the other. So you can kind of see how we're mounting it here. Johnny's got it in his hand.
But you can see if you see the profile of the roof, this kind of fits under where the roof's folded over itself, and then your set screw pinches it. It's a rounded set screw, so it doesn't perforate it. You got your serrated 1/2-inch flange nut, and you got your 1/2-inch channel bolt for your snapping rack where you bolt your rail in, your aluminum extrusion. You don't have to, this is just a standard L-foot. There's a million different types.
Yeah, there's so much hardware for roof racking.
And it's on 4-foot centers, which is
We're going to go back up over the top. So for this one, there's going to be a row of 4, a row of 5, and the top row will be 9.
the 4-foot centers are plenty strong for this area. So
good. Let's talk just a little bit. This array is not perfectly south, but we want to talk about the southeast and southwest facing roof. We find that air conditioning is a desired addition to your off-grid system.
those are the AC disconnects we were talking about.
Yeah, we'll get those after the roof.
Oh yeah.
Okay, whatever. But explain. Hey boss, explain this cool strategy you've got with southwest and southeast facing arrays. You want to do that?
Okay, yeah. So I like to, instead of trying to do one giant solar array that faces directly south, when you have one big solar array, that's really common in the solar world because you get your you get your greatest annual production with a south-facing solar array. But the charge profile on a battery, it's just like a big peaky bell, you know. So when you want to charge a battery, if you look at house loads it's more of a sustained bell. It's like a crested butte. Would that be the shape?
Oh man, he's getting fancy now on me.
It's like a plateau. It's like a mountain plateau. So we want our charge profile to look like a mountain plateau. So if this is time and this is battery charge, what I'm trying to do by facing arrays east and west is start charging early in the morning, and I want to keep charging, and I want to charge up at the end of the day. So I've got, on this one, I'm thinking about the loads for the house, and one of the biggest loads in the southeast that comes to mind is air conditioning. So we try to dedicate a solar array that's, facing west, and it's going to get that southwest sun. It's going to be during the hottest time of the day. That
6, 7, 8 o'clock at night.
It's going to be cranking out the power, and it's going to give you power when you need it. So if you want your battery to last a long time and you don't want to spend a ton of money on a battery, the way to do that is to put your solar arrays so that they're going to produce the power when you need it. So you're not cycling your battery, you're just running direct off the solar. And that shrinks down the battery size. It lessens it lessens the time that you're discharging your battery, and it lets you charge your battery later into the day.
Sweet.
We like that.
We like that.
That's the Amish.
We've been monitoring some of this on the internet and seeing the charge profiles, and it's fun to watch. So when you start making power at 7:38 in the morning, it's pretty exciting. Anyway, just wanted to show you the disconnect strategy that we have to use here. So go ahead.
All right, this is just straight up water heater style pull out disconnects. Real hard to make any mistake, not confusing at all. One of them is for the utility. You pull that out. That's going to keep it's a pull out style that's going to tell the utility the power's off, the inverter's not possibly able to feed power back into the grid. That's they always like that. Utilities like it. And then the other one.
This is where we have to. This is the blooper section of the video.
This is on the B track. There we go. She's in. She's back in.
So when you got a couple, you got one more. What's going to go here? A DC.
We'll have a DC disconnect for the
solar
array.
coming down from the roof.
You can turn it off before it goes into the house, and this will be for a generator plug so that they can
put 50 amps in through the Radian.
Right, any generator you want. You can get adapter plugs and.
Right, you can go Honda little 2000 EU up to a big old. Okay, the next part we want to show you is a really cool battery box. Now in this house, we had the architect actually thinking ahead. They designed in a unbelievably nice cabinet outside, and we just set a shelf in, heavy-duty shelf, to support this 48-volt battery bank. Go ahead, Johnny, tell them about the details. You've seen this on another video. We just have this battery in a different configuration. It's 2 rows of 12. They're again 24 2-volt cells to give you 48-volt battery bank, and all the goodies on top with watering kits. And I love these. You just can't mess up. You can't short. Nothing can short another terminal across another terminal. It's a very safe battery to work on, but you still better respect it because you've got 48 volts and 826 amp hours sitting here. So what else you want to tell them about this? Anything?
Just a good move by the builder here. He lined the bottom of the battery bank floor with this is like a waterproofing membrane betathene. So if there's any kind of water getting down there or acid, this battery might be here 10-15 years. So we don't want the plywood. We definitely don't want the plywood to rot out before the battery's going to be out of service. So that's a good move right there. Put something down in if you build a wooden battery box, protect it. And then, like you said, we got the auto watering kit, the insulated connectors.
And the vent? Tell them about the vent.
Oh, yeah, we got a vent going. We'll have a vent fan, 48-volt vent fan.
We haven't done that yet, but we'll be, there's an intake already put in there, 2-inch inlet to the battery box. This will kind of be sealed up. It's really nice that it's actually built in. It's external from the living quarters.
We got our fine stranded, UL listed machine tool wire.
Nice battery cables.
Good, nice battery cable. Good marine grade heat shrink. You want all that.
And the inverter is just on the other side of that conduit. So pretty slick setup so far. We look forward to showing you the finished product and getting it fired up. All right, here we are. Johnny's showing us why it's called Snap and Rack. Just snapped into place right there.
There it is. It snaps in. So this is like a channel-based rack. You have channel racks where you got a big, it's usually beefier, and it's got a channel, and then there's also your type of racks that are based off T-bolts, and they're usually slimmer, and that's like your Unirack, your Iron Ridge, your DPW, and then you've got a channel-based rack like Pro Solar or Snap and Rack that is a little heavier duty. Everything's based off of, usually you don't have to switch fasteners, and you can snap it in anywhere, and if you want it out, you just kind of, you got to hit it with something and it'll pop right out, or it slides in. But Snap and Rack's cool because you can just pop it in, and it's really strong. And if you can see that, which I don't know if you can, but that right there, there's integrated grounding and bonding. So that little stainless steel tooth is embedded in the aluminum channel nut, and it bites, and so you get a really good ground connection on everything. And I don't like to play around with that, so I like Snap and Rack.
That's cool.
And that's what you got. What you got on the roof right here is sitting like this. And this nut snugs all the way up, and that's how she's sitting on the roof. And of course, the solar panels mount directly down onto here, and there's another clamp that goes in there.
And that's from Snap and Rack too.
Everything's from Snap and Rack, yeah.
Except for the S5 clamps that get you to the rack.
And Snap and Rack's got cool. They're just good. It's good rack. I've tried a lot of racks. I like that.
Hey folks, Engineer 775 out working in the shop late night. Got to get it done. This is a standing seam metal roof. It's what I recommended to a customer so that there would be no roof penetrations in putting solar racking on their roof. So they make these cool clamps. They're called S5 clamps, and there's a lot of different designs. So the goal is to try to match up the S5. Well, we thought we had the right S5 clamp, but this, we've had to make a few modifications. There's only a couple of these that are even close, and this was the closest one. So with a scrap piece, it looks pretty good. See that little foot on the bottom has got to go in the groove on the bottom. And then there's a set screw on the side, and that's the set screw. But the problem is, this is, I'll show you, this is one out of the box, and this is the modified one with cutting a little bit off. So this goes right on there beautifully. So I don't think I'm hurting the integrity at all, making it actually better setup. So very stout setup here. Hope you can see that, but you just run these set screws in, tighten it down, and then you mount your rack. And on this job, we're using snap and rack.
Okay, we got the racking system up on the standing seam roof and beginning to get the wires strung for the strings. This array will have 3 strings of 3, and the combiner is there, all set to go. 3 strings of 3. It is actually conduited down to a boot that's going to poke through the soffit instead of putting the conduit around the soffit. So that's all kind of run, whoops, over to the disconnects on this side. You're going to have a midnight disconnect, all the AC and DC disconnects and the generator hookup. So the conduit has been run for the other array, which starts on this side, and it'll have 18 modules, and it goes over to the other side of the peak. I'll show you that later. So there'll be a combiner for that array, a combiner for this array, and then they will both be run down to 2 separate charge controllers. These are Solar World 285 modules, and we're just getting them kind of dressed up here so that makes it easier to make the connections once you're up on the roof. You don't have to fight these when you get up there. So we try to pre-string them down here, pre-dress them, and get them ready to plug into the MC4s up on the racking. So, all right. Okay, we're on the other side here. We're going to put on this side, we've got 18 285 modules, and they're going to go into Mr. Johnny's combiner. Decided to reroute the array down through a soffit. So he's getting pretty fancy here with a combiner to penetration through the soffit, so you're not going to see any metal conduit going around gutters or around the roof. Pretty neat job there you got going on, boss.
Combiner box, mounted under the panels. It's an area of much contention. Some folks feel the combiner box should be mounted in a visible location. But since it's not a disconnected combiner anyway, if there's something wrong with the array and you've got to come up here and troubleshoot, you're going to have to open the combiner box anyway. So, I mean, pulling one panel,
no big deal.
You sacrifice readily accessible for
visibility.
Yeah, it's gonna look like, people want it to look like the solar panels have no wires and they just
there. They're hovering on the roof.
We want them to believe in that magic.
Yes, we do. So
there is some magic, but there's also a lot of wires.
A lot of wires, a lot of work. And here's that S5 clamp that we talked about before, going to the snap and racking system. So, okay, time to put some modules up. Okay, I'm back in the battery box. We've got a power vent right here, and I just modified it to fit to a normal dryer vent. So when the voltage gets up to where it's equalizing the batteries, it'll just turn that power vent on. The ceiling's going to be spray foamed, so this whole box will be sealed off, and the only air coming in will actually be from this vent outside. So fresh air coming into the box, into the battery space here. And it'll be sucked up and out. And the voltage hits, I think it's 58 volts. I could be wrong on that. It's whatever the equalization voltage is. This is the one we're looking for. Last module going in place. It was dark 30 last night. It's dark 30 tonight. But we're gonna have this array completed. Looking good. Sorry for the zoom in. It's late. Standing seam, metal roof. Roof jobs are always more difficult than ground mount, so if you're looking for a system, if we can do a ground mount, we'll try to convince you for many reasons. Not dealing with the roof, of course, the heat, the valleys, the everything. Oh, they're gonna start singing to you.
Sorry, dude.
I guess he sings that song on the last solar panel.
Of course the implant that jack up.
So everybody's a little loopy, but it's a beautiful looking solar array. There was a concern about the trying to hide the solar. So when you look at the house head on, you can see the solar, but it's the same color as the rake on the standing seam metal roof. So I think it looks awesome. We set it back as much as we felt we could, cut off the rails. I think it looks good. What do you think, folks? You can't even tell. Not that you want to hide your solar. Solar's awesome. But anyway, I don't think it takes away from the looks of the house one way or another.